45 things Americans think are healthy, but are slowly making things worse. These habits aren't dangerous because they're extreme. They're dangerous because everyone believes them. They're praised, shared, recommended by friends, influencers, and sometimes even doctors on morning shows. They look disciplined, responsible, clean. And that's exactly the problem. Because when something is labeled healthy, people stop questioning it. They stop listening to their bodies. They start listening to rules. Have you ever forced yourself to eat something you hated because it was good for you? Have you ever ignored hunger, exhaustion, or stress because a routine told you that discomfort meant progress? Have you ever felt guilty for resting, as if health were a moral test you were quietly failing? None of that came from science alone. It came from stories, from before and after photos, from perfectly framed routines that promise control in a world that feels increasingly uncontrollable. Some of these habits began with good intentions. Simplify eating, stay active, think positively. But over time, they hardened into identities, into signals, into quiet competitions about who is doing wellness the right way. And slowly, the focus shifted from health to performance, from balance to optimization, from listening to the body to overriding it. People started mistaking discipline for care, restriction for responsibility, exhaustion for achievement. Today, we're opening the file on the strangest and most absurd experiments humanity has ever attempted. Not experiments in medicine, but experiments in belief. Because when health becomes something you have to prove, to yourself, to algorithms, to strangers online, the body stops being a partner. It becomes a project. Fasten your seatbelts. Logic is about to die a spectacular death. Fact 1. When eating clean turned food into morality. Eating clean sounds responsible, pure, disciplined. It promises control in a chaotic food environment. The problem is that cleanliness isn't a nutritional category. Science measures nutrients, energy balance, and long-term patterns, not virtue. When food becomes clean or dirty, eating stops being biological and starts being moral. People begin to restrict not because of health, but because of identity. Meals create anxiety. Social eating becomes negotiation. Hunger is ignored if it contradicts the rule. The habit doesn't fail because vegetables are bad. It fails because rigidity replaces flexibility. Health didn't decline overnight. It thinned under guilt. Fact 2. When low fat became high confidence. For decades, low-fat labels signaled health. Less fat meant fewer problems. But fat removal often required sugar, starch, or additives to maintain taste. The science evolved. The labels didn't. People ate more because they felt safer. Portions grew because the warning disappeared. Satiety dropped because fat, a key signal for fullness, was missing. The habit wasn't dangerous because fat was avoided. It was dangerous because trust replaced awareness. People didn't eat intuitively, they ate permission. Fact 3. When daily cardio replaced recovery. Running every day looks disciplined, consistent, earned. But constant high-intensity cardio without recovery stresses joints, hormones, and the nervous system. Science doesn't oppose movement. It opposes chronic strain without rest. In wellness culture, rest looks lazy. Exhaustion looks committed. So people push through pain that isn't adaptation, it's warning. Injuries accumulate quietly. Burnout arrives disguised as dedication. The habit didn't hurt because movement is bad. It hurt because stopping felt like failure. Fact 4. When positive thinking silenced signals. Positive thinking promises mental health through mindset. Reframe, push away negativity, stay grateful. But emotions don't disappear when ignored. They compress. Research shows suppression increases stress, not resilience. Yet wellness culture rewards optimism, not processing. People stop naming discomfort. They stop asking for help. Everything becomes a lesson instead of a signal. The habit didn't heal the mind, it muted it. Fact 5. When wellness became content. Many healthy habits spread not because they work, but because they film well. Simple rules, clear visuals, transformation arcs. Science is slow. Algorithms aren't. What spreads is what looks disciplined, not what adapts to real bodies. People follow routines designed for engagement, not sustainability. The habit didn't fail biologically, it failed contextually. Bodies became backdrops. Health became performance. Fact 6. When sugar-free meant consequence-free. Sugar-free sounds like safety. The warning label disappears, so caution does too. But removing sugar doesn't remove impact. It often replaces it. Artificial sweeteners can disrupt appetite signals. Some increase cravings. Others encourage compensation later. The body registers sweetness without calories and keeps asking for more. The habit doesn't fail because sugar was avoided. It fails because expectation was manipulated. People didn't eat less, they trusted more. Fact 7. When protein turned into a fix for everything. Protein became the hero macro. Build muscle, burn fat, stay full, be disciplined. So people added protein bars, shakes, powders, often on top of meals already sufficient. The body doesn't translate excess protein into superpowers. It processes it as energy or waste. The science supports adequacy, not obsession. The habit didn't harm because protein is bad. It harmed because balance was replaced by fixation. Fact 8. When natural replaced evidence. Natural labels promise safety through origin. If it comes from plants, it must be gentle. But natural isn't a scientific guarantee. It's a marketing adjective. Dosage, interactions, and long-term effects still matter. People trusted packaging more than evidence. Supplements multiplied. Expectations rose. The habit didn't fail because nature is dangerous. It failed because natural ended the conversation. Fact 9. When intermittent fasting became identity. Fasting simplified eating. Rules felt clean. Control felt earned. For some, it worked. For many, it introduced rigidity. Hunger became something to defeat. Social life adjusted around windows. Science supports flexibility. Wellness culture rewards purity. The habit didn't break bodies immediately. It narrowed lives slowly. Fact 10. When portion control turned into distraction. Smaller plates, smaller servings, smaller numbers. But focusing on portions distracted from quality, context, and satisfaction. People ate correct amounts while staying hungry. Hunger returned louder, later. The habit didn't teach awareness, it taught surveillance. Eating became math. Satiety became optional. Fact 11. When step counts replaced listening. 10,000 steps became a moral target. Miss it and the day felt unfinished. Hit it and discomfort was forgiven. The number wasn't designed as a health threshold. It was a marketing benchmark that looked clean on screens. Bodies didn't sign up for it. People walked through pain, fatigue, and illness to satisfy a counter. Signals were overridden because progress was visible. Rest felt like cheating. The habit didn't harm because walking is bad. It harmed because numbers replaced sensation. Fact 12. When calorie burn became the goal. Workouts turned into accounting. Every session had to justify itself in calories burned. Strength, coordination, and recovery mattered less than output. High burn sessions felt virtuous. Low-intensity movement felt wasteful. Science values adaptation. Wellness culture rewards exhaustion. The habit didn't improve fitness, it optimized guilt. People stopped asking what the body needed and started asking what it could survive. Fact 13. When no days off normalized injury. Consistency was framed as character. Rest days looked like weakness. But recovery isn't absence of training, it's part of it. Ignoring it compounds stress, not strength. Injuries didn't appear suddenly. They accumulated quietly while motivation was praised. The habit didn't fail because discipline is bad. It failed because discipline was misdefined. Fact 14. When wearables dictated self-worth. Heart rate, sleep scores, recovery metrics, data promised insight. But numbers lack context. Anxiety filled the gaps. Bad scores ruined mornings. Good scores justified overreach. The habit didn't enhance awareness, it outsourced it. Bodies became dashboards. Feelings became secondary. Fact 15. When exercise became punishment. Movement stopped being care and started being correction. Eat more, train harder. Miss a workout, compensate later. The science supports movement for health. The culture uses it for control. The habit didn't damage muscles first. It damaged the relationship. Fact 16. When self-care turned into consumption. Self-care began as maintenance, sleep, boundaries, downtime. Then it became a market. Candles, retreats, subscriptions, rituals, all promising relief with a checkout button. Care shifted from behaviors to purchases. If you felt bad, you hadn't bought the right solution yet. The habit didn't fail because comfort is harmful. It failed because care was outsourced to products. Rest became performative. Recovery became aesthetic. And when the feeling returned, the answer wasn't reflection, it was another purchase. Fact 17. When healing became a personal brand. Healing language spread quickly. Trauma, growth, inner work. But online, healing rewarded visibility, not resolution. Pain performed better than progress. Sharing replaced processing. People stayed in healing because leaving it meant losing identity and attention. The habit didn't delay recovery, it prolonged the story. Healing stopped being a phase, it became a role. Fact 18. When gratitude silenced distress. Gratitude practices promised perspective, focus on what's good. But used rigidly, gratitude suppressed legitimate discomfort. Stress became ingratitude. Exhaustion became weakness. Research supports gratitude as a tool, not a muzzle. The habit didn't improve mental health, it restricted emotional range. People stopped asking what was wrong, they asked why they weren't happier about it. Fact 19. When boundaries became isolation. Boundaries were reframed as protection. Say no, cut people off, preserve energy. But applied without nuance, boundaries turned defensive. Conflict avoidance replaced communication. Isolation felt justified. The habit didn't protect peace, it reduced tolerance. Relationships didn't end because they were unhealthy. They ended because discomfort was misclassified as harm. Fact 20. When mental health became a metric.
Mood trackers, streaks, check-ins, scores. Measurement promised control. Instead, it created surveillance. Bad days felt like failure. Good days felt fragile. The habit didn't increase awareness, it increased self-monitoring. Mental health stopped being experienced, it was audited.
Fact 21. When algorithms rewarded simplicity over accuracy.
Health science is slow, conditional, and full of caveats. Algorithms are not. Platforms reward clarity, confidence, and repetition. Always do this performs better than it depends. Nuance doesn't trend. Certainty does. So the most visible health advice isn't the most accurate. It's the easiest to understand and repeat. Over time, repetition turns suggestion into truth. The habit didn't spread because it worked. It spread because it was legible.
Fact 22. When before and after became evidence. Transformation photos feel scientific. Same body, different result. Proof. But they hide variables, genetics, time, resources, editing, context. What looks like cause is often coincidence. The science asks for controls. The feed asks for impact. The habit didn't convince people through data. it convinced them through narrative. Fact 23. When influencers replaced interpreters. Science needs translation. Influencers provided it, selectively. Studies were simplified, stripped of limits, and framed as lifestyle choices. Authority came from confidence, not credentials. The habit didn't gain trust because it was vetted. It gained trust because it felt familiar. Fact 24. When sponsorship shaped wellness. Products didn't interrupt wellness content, they became it. Advice blended with advertising, lines blurred, motivation sounded sincere, incentives stayed hidden. The habit didn't fail because products are evil. It failed because incentives weren't neutral. Fact 25. When virality decided what healthy meant. What spreads defines the norm. What doesn't disappears. Health became what could be explained in 15 seconds, shown in one frame and repeated daily. The habit didn't outcompete science, it outperformed it. Fact 26. When health habits created constant low-grade stress. None of these habits caused immediate collapse. What they created instead was constant vigilance, tracking, restricting, optimizing, monitoring. The body stayed alert even when nothing was wrong. Stress hormones didn't spike, they simmered. Sleep quality declined quietly. Irritability became normal. The habit didn't break health suddenly, it wore it down gradually. People didn't feel sick, they felt on edge. Fact 27. When body awareness turned into body surveillance. Wellness promised reconnection with the body. In practice, it often delivered scrutiny. Every sensation needed interpretation. Hunger meant something. Fatigue meant something. Mood meant something. The body stopped being experienced and started being inspected. The habit didn't increase intuition. It replaced it with suspicion. Fact 28. When doing everything right still felt wrong. People followed the rules, ate the right foods, moved correctly, thought positively, and still felt tired. Instead of questioning the system, they questioned themselves. Discipline increased, rest decreased, guilt filled the gap. The habit didn't improve health, it personalized failure. Fact 29. When wellness shrank life's range. Travel became complicated. Social eating felt dangerous. Spontaneity disappeared. Health routines demanded consistency at the cost of flexibility. The habit didn't make life healthier, it made it smaller. Fact 30. When normal discomfort looked like dysfunction. Fatigue, sadness, fluctuation, once normal human states, were reframed as problems to fix. The habit didn't treat illness, it pathologized being human. Fact 31. When wellness offered moral relief, not health. Wellness didn't just promise better bodies, it promised better people. Doing the right habits created a sense of moral safety. If something went wrong, at least you had tried, at least you were disciplined, at least you were doing what everyone said was healthy. The habit didn't reduce illness, it reduced uncertainty. In a culture uncomfortable with randomness, wellness turned health into something controllable, even when it wasn't. People didn't follow these habits to feel better. They followed them to feel less responsible if things went wrong. Fact 32. When blame shifted from systems to individuals. Wellness culture thrives because it personalizes responsibility. Stress from work? Fix your mindset. Burnout from economics? Fix your routine. Exhaustion from instability? Fix your diet. The habit didn't empower people, it relocated blame. Instead of asking why life felt unsustainable, people asked why they weren't optimizing better. The system stayed untouched. The individual became the project. Fact 33. When simplicity felt safer than complexity. Health is complicated. Bodies vary. Outcomes aren't guaranteed. Wellness culture offered something simpler. Rules, lists, binaries. Do this, avoid that. The habit didn't exist because it was accurate. It existed because it was comforting. Certainty felt safer than nuance. Fact 34. When identity protected the belief. Once health habits became identity, questioning them felt personal. Changing course felt like admitting failure. Evidence became threatening. Doubt felt disloyal. The habit didn't survive scrutiny. It survived attachment. People defended routines the way they defended themselves. Fact 35. When health became a performance. Wellness rewarded visibility, sharing routines, posting progress, broadcasting discipline. Health stopped being something you experienced. It became something you demonstrated. The habit didn't aim for longevity. It aimed for validation. Fact 36. When health stopped being a state and became a signal. Health used to be something you noticed when it was missing. Now it's something you signal constantly. What you eat, how you move, how you think, all become indicators of discipline, of worth, of effort. The habit didn't improve well-being. It improved legibility. People learned to communicate health outwardly, even when inwardly things felt worse. Health stopped being felt. It started being displayed. Fact 37. When routines replaced adaptation. Bodies change. Contexts shift. Needs evolve. Wellness routines rarely do. What once felt helpful becomes rigid, but abandoning it feels like regression. So people push through misalignment rather than adjust. The habit didn't fail because routines are bad. It failed because flexibility was framed as weakness. Fact 38. When discipline was confused with care. Discipline looks impressive. Care looks quiet. Wellness culture favors what can be measured and shown. Care, rest, gentleness, inconsistency, doesn't perform. So people disciplined themselves into exhaustion and called it self-respect. The habit didn't create strength. It normalized self-neglect with better branding. Fact 39. When health became a competition with no end. Once health is identity, comparison is inevitable. Who eats cleaner? Who trains harder? Who heals faster? There's no finish line, only escalation. The habit didn't motivate sustainably. It created endless insufficiency. Fact 40. When the body became a project. Projects are never done. They require constant improvement. When the body becomes one, satisfaction disappears. Health stops being lived. It's managed. The habit didn't enhance life. It consumed it. Fact 41. When control was mistaken for health. Wellness habits promised control in a world that feels unstable. Control over food, over bodies, over emotions. Control feels like safety. But health is adaptive, not obedient. Bodies don't respond well to constant management. They respond to signals, rest, and variability. The habit didn't create health. It created the feeling of doing something. And when outcomes didn't improve, control tightened instead of loosening. The problem wasn't effort. It was mistaking control for care. Fact 42. When failure was internalized. When wellness rules don't work, the system rarely takes responsibility. People do. If you're still tired, you didn't optimize enough. If you're stressed, you didn't meditate correctly. If you're unwell, you missed a step. The habit didn't empower people. It individualized disappointment. Instead of questioning whether the promise was unrealistic, people questioned themselves. Fact 43. When health lost its contact. Health doesn't exist in isolation. It's shaped by work, money, safety, relationships. Wellness culture removed context and replaced it with routines. The habit didn't ignore reality accidentally. It required ignoring it to function. Complex problems were reduced to personal habits because habits are easier to sell than structural change. Fact 44. When optimization replaced living. Wellness framed life as a system to improve. Every choice needed justification. Every deviation needed correction. Joy without purpose felt suspicious. Rest without productivity felt wrong. The habit didn't make life healthier. It made it conditional. Fact 45. When healthy stopped feeling good. The final contradiction is simple. If a habit leaves people anxious, exhausted, guilty, and disconnected, what exactly is it improving? The habits survived not because they worked, but because they were believed. Health became something to prove, not something to feel. And once belief replaces experience, the system no longer needs evidence. So far, none of these habits failed because people didn't care about their health. They failed because people cared too much about doing health the right way. What we've seen isn't a list of bad choices. It's a system of beliefs that quietly replaced listening with rules, intuition with metrics, and care with control. Food became moral. Movement became punishment. Mental health became something to display. And slowly, the body stopped being a source of information and turned into something to manage, audit, and correct. Most of these habits didn't begin as extremes. They began as simplifications. Eat cleaner, move more, think positively, track progress, optimize. But simplification hardened into identity. Identity resisted nuance. And nuance is where real health lives. Instead of asking how they felt, people asked whether they were compliant. Instead of noticing recovery, they noticed streaks. Instead of adjusting to life, they tried to override it. The most unsettling part is how familiar this feels. Because none of it requires bad intentions. It only requires a culture that rewards certainty over curiosity, performance over presence, and visible discipline over quiet well-being. Wellness didn't spread because it healed people. It spread because it offered a story that made sense in an unstable world. A story where health was earned through effort, where outcomes felt deserved, where discomfort meant progress. And once that story took hold, evidence mattered less than belief. Because when a habit becomes proof of who you are, questioning it doesn't feel scientific. It feels personal. That's how healthy stopped being a state and became a standard no one ever fully meets. And that's where things start getting worse. Maybe the strangest part of all this isn't that these habits failed. It's that they keep spreading. Not because they make people healthier, but because they make people feel responsible. In a culture that struggles with uncertainty, responsibility feels like relief. If health is something you can earn through discipline, then outcomes stop feeling random. They feel deserved. That belief is comforting and expensive. Because once health becomes a moral achievement, the body stops being something you live in. It becomes something you manage, something you correct, something that's never quite finished. The promise was balance. The result was vigilance. Food lost its neutrality. Movement lost its joy. Rest lost its permission. Even mental health became another metric to optimize, another area where doing enough always felt slightly out of reach. None of this required bad science. It required good marketing. Wellness culture didn't win by being accurate. It won by being legible. Simple rules, clean language, clear villains, easy heroes. It offered certainty where science offered context. And certainty always travels faster. We always reach for the impossible, but sometimes it's because no one stopped to ask if we should. No one stopped to ask what happens when health becomes something you have to prove, when feeling good is less important than looking disciplined, when exhaustion is reframed as commitment, when normal human fluctuation starts to feel like personal failure. The body doesn't collapse under this pressure all at once. It adapts. It compensates. It goes quiet. And that's what makes it dangerous. Because when harm arrives slowly, belief has time to entrench itself. People don't abandon the habit. They double down. They assume the problem isn't the system, it's them. That's the final contradiction. A culture obsessed with health has created more anxiety, more guilt, and more disconnection from the very signals that keep people well. This has been The Absurdist Files, where logic takes a vacation and reality writes the jokes. And in this case, the joke isn't that people wanted to be healthy. It's that somewhere along the way, health stopped feeling like care and started feeling like a test no one ever passes.